Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Courtroom Insider from my very comfortable, cool hotel room. It is 7 o'clock in Phoenix and it is 105 degrees outside. Out of all the days I've been here, today's the hottest. It is so warm, but I'm so glad you're here with me. It was a hot day outside. It was a hot day in the courtroom. Lots of witnesses today on the stand, six. If you can believe it or not, the prosecution is really advancing, and it's only day three of Lori Vallow's case. We're going to talk about GSR, DNA, license plates, and more. I'll explain what those words mean. You know what DNA means. I mean, those letters as we go through tonight. Please let me know where you're watching from. If you have any comments or questions, put them down below. Peggy Jepson, our comment moderator, she's been on alert this entire trial, going through your questions, sending them in to me, and I appreciate you all watching. Here's what we've got coming up tonight. Closed door sidebar. First time we've had this in the trial. It lasted about 30 minutes. Six witnesses on the stand today. I mentioned the GSR, the DNA, the LPR, and more. It was the day of letters and acronyms, and we learned all about it in the courtroom. T-shirt giveaway. I mentioned this last night, and I forgot to do it. We're going to do it tonight. 10 of you are going to win a T-shirt from newspapers.com, our sponsor, and they're very comfortable and very fashionable, and you can enter from anywhere in the world. I'll explain that. And of course, we have shout outs, special shout outs, questions, and all of that stuff tonight. So let's get going, why don't we? The day started with a packed house. We had more people there today than ever before that we have seen in our way. And we have so much that so many people there that and not everybody got in. There was probably 10 or 15 people that had to wait after the morning session to get in at lunch. The numbers thinned out in the afternoon, but I think after Fridays, everything that happened on Friday, a lot of people wanted to see. So I got to meet a lot of amazing people, and many of you are watching tonight and got photos with you. So I appreciate that. We went in the courtroom, we sat down, the judge came out, the parties were there. He said he needed to hold a sidebar. And one of the people that was part of the sidebar was someone from the Department of Corrections. And we don't know why that person was there. Hopefully, the judge releases some of the court minutes, because after they all went up to the judge's bench, they turned on some white noise briefly, and then the judge sent everybody out. I did not know until today that when you're watching at home, you don't get to hear the white noise. And many of you have emailed saying, "What is white noise?" I'm going to play it for you right now. This is white noise. And this is what we hear in the courtroom when they go into a sidebar. You ready? Here it is. That's it. Sorry if that blew your speakers. My levels were popping there. I turned it down a bit. So you're saying, well, how can you not hear stuff when that goes on? You can't. You can't hear anything. Um, in fact, I use white noise, actually use brown noise. It's a different tone to sleep, and it really does block out the noise. So if you are my doorbell keeps going off, so I keep looking at my phone thinking Peggy's messaging me saying something's wrong, but it's my family's out on the front in the front yard doing stuff. So hi family, they're not watching. Anyway, that's the white noise that's played. We went outside. Uh, the sidebar lasted around 30 minutes. We went back into the courtroom. The judge called the jury and he asked them not to speculate about what happened. And we still don't know. We might know more tomorrow, and of course, I'll bring that to you if we do. The prosecution then lined up their deck of witnesses, and here's who we had called today who testified. Dan Moss, he's a window tint expert. He runs a shop in Rexburg. Thomas Miller works for the DEA. We've talked about why would a drug enforcement administrator be called to testify in this trial? We now know. We now know, and I'll tell you why. Emmy Lynn Sapinosa, she works in forensics. Lisa Perry also works in forensics. Maryanne Robb is a retired Gilbert police officer. You might recall a few weeks ago when I did a Courtroom Insider, I played some of the video, her body camera footage when she arrived at the scene. She took the stand today. And Detective Ryan Pillar was back on the stand from Gilbert PD, kind of took a break because he ended the day Friday. And I think Trina K had to get in all of these others who traveled from out of town. Dan Moss is from Rexburg. Thomas Miller, I don't know where he's based, but Emmy Sapinosa is in California now. She works for Orange County. So all these witnesses flew in, and she had to get them on before we got back to Detective Pillar. Now, Dan Moss talked about the getting reached out to by someone with a 480 area code number, most likely Alex Cox, Lori Vallow, the pair. And he showed his phone saying that they had called his company inquiring about getting a window tint put on a Jeep. He explained that cars come already manufactured with a tint on them, but if you go in, you can increase the percentage of your tint. Sometimes the back of the car, depending on the make and model, will be darker. So increasing it simply by 5%, you could have a really dark window, or you could increase it by 25%, and it would be even darker than that. It all depends on the amount of exposure from the sun and light that you're hoping to get into your car. So he texted with this person, Alex Cox, Lori Vallow, whomever it was, on the 480 number, and set up an appointment to have the Jeep come in to get the extra tint on. And they showed photos that his surveillance camera in the store had captured of him actually working on the Jeep. Here's a bit of his testimony.
Can you describe for us what we see here?
Looks like I'm cleaning some windows, just about ready to put some film on that door glass.
So this is you did the work on this Jeep Wrangler.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about, this is the vehicle that was associated with the 480-351-9120 number.
Yeah.
Now this is a two-door Jeep Wrangler.
Yes.
When you are looking at a vehicle like a Jeep Wrangler, do they come with factory tint on them?
Yes.
So when a vehicle has factory tint on it, what do you do when they're brought in to put tint on them?
All the time people come in and ask to darken the factory tinted glass, because the factory tinted glass is usually like a 20% VLT, and you just layer another dark layer on top of it.
Okay. So you don't have to try to take off that other tint. You're just putting another layer on top of it.
Yep.
So in this case, you said you were cleaning. We can see a spray bottle. You clean the glass before you put the next layer on.
Yep.
When you are talking about different percentages of tint, in this case, do you recall being asked to put a 5% tint on the rear windows?
Yes.
So if there's already tint on the car and then you add the 5%, does that make it even darker than what we would expect on a normal 5%?
Yeah. If you slide a VLT meter on there, like all officers have usually in their car, it will usually net like 2% or 0% VLT.
And so would that mean you can't see anything in the back?
Yeah, dark.
So if someone was laying or sitting in the back of this Jeep and you tried to walk by and look in there, you wouldn't be able to see it.
Objection. No. Speculation.
Overruled.
Having worked on these cars and seen what this looks like, are you familiar with whether or not you can see someone inside the vehicle with that dark of tint?
Yes, definitely.
So from your personal experience, you are telling us that with the 5% and then the additional factory tint, you would not be able to see into the back of that Jeep.
Broad daylight, you can't see in.
Now the 20% that's in these front windows on top of the factory, would you still have some ability to see in?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the Jeep goes in end of September, gets the tint put on about less than 10 days before Alex made the trip from Rexburg to Phoenix in that Jeep. I know many of you love that Mr. Moss there wore his T-shirt on the stand. Hey, he knew he was going to be broadcast to thousands and thousands of people, and now we all know the name of his window tinting shop. His testimony was relatively short. Lori Vallow had no questions for him. And the next witness was Thomas Miller. He works for the Drug Enforcement Administration, and he talked about license plate readers. You may not know, but there are thousands of license plate readers across the country on interstates that are used to track drug traffickers, to catch them. Some have really high-end cameras that get great images of license plates. Some have really crappy cameras that you can't tell what the numbers are. It all depends on the age of the camera. It all depends on how much traffic is going through. If there's a ton of traffic, it might not catch all of the license plates. It's technology. And he talked about that. And that's why the DEA was there. There was no talk of drugs, of Lori or Alex or anyone using drugs. It was the fact that their license plate reader in Holbrook, Arizona, was able to catch the Jeep on the day that Brandon was shot at on a camera. And here is part of what Mr. Miller said.
So is this a document that's part of the National License Plate Reader diesel system?
Yes, it is.
So in this case, when we're looking at the top here, first we see plate. Is that the plate that's associated with this vehicle that we see here?
Yes, it is.
So that's LWD0997.
Yes, and I believe that was a Texas license plate.
Then the location here, DEA FCU AZ Holbrook. Can you tell us what that means?
Depending on who the unit chief was at the time, they will name a camera, specifically if it's owned by DEA, a certain name, and a lot of times it will include at least a city or town that's fairly close to that location.
And is this license plate reader on the I-40?
Yes, it is.
And is this one located a little to the, I guess, west or east of Holbrook on the I-40?
Yes.
Okay. And then we see a time and a date. So is that October 1st of 2019?
Yes, it is.
And it's 6:52 Mountain Standard Time?
Yes.
At that time on October 1st of 2019, if we convert that to Arizona time, is it 5:52?
Yes, it would be that time of the year.
Okay. Over here we see highway name, you said I-40 westbound, and then direction giving us the westbound as well.
Yes.
In this photograph, we see the back of a vehicle with no tire on the back of it. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then was there a second page of this that gave a closer up of the license plate on this?
Yes, it does.
And is that what was documented in the citing details of a Texas plate LWD 0997?
Yes.
I misspoke. I said that the license plate reader caught the car on the day Brandon was shot. It was actually the day before, and it was in Holbrook, which is about 200 miles, give or take, from Phoenix, about 3-hour drive, the day before Brandon was shot at. And the big thing there is no tire on the back of the Jeep. You and I know, if you've been watching, that likely tomorrow, if Detective Hermosillo testifies, Trina K has already said that she's going to bring in the fact that storage unit footage of them wheeling the tire in and out, and she might be saving him for the end, or Nick Balance with the FBI, who has all the cell phone ping information. Those two, I imagine, will be the last witnesses. Maybe a few more. I don't know anything. I don't have any inside intel or anything, but I just think that they're going to show that. So Trina K is gradually introducing bit by bit that Jeep had no tire on the back. Conveniently, the tire was wheeled in or carried in, or Chad wheeled it into the surveillance or the storage unit there in Idaho, and then it was taken back out once the Jeep arrived back in Idaho. We'll learn that down the road. So Holbrook, or Thomas Miller, talks about Holbrook, Arizona, where the license plate catches the Jeep, and then Lori actually does have some questions for him. Here's what she asks.
Is it the only picture, license plate reader picture that you have in Arizona on October 1st?
Yes, that's the only picture in our diesel platform.
Okay. And how many license plate readers do you have in Gilbert, Arizona?
I am not sure on how many we exactly have.
Do you have any?
Yes, we do.
There's one on Gilbert Road, isn't there?
That I'm not sure. We have over 11,000 cameras that feed into the diesel platform.
Okay. What about in Mesa, Arizona? Are you aware of any in Mesa, Arizona?
I am unaware how many cameras that we have in Mesa, Arizona. We do have quite a few cameras, LPR cameras in Arizona.
And so of all those cameras that you have along this way, when this incident happened in Gilbert, Arizona, you don't have any other pictures of this Jeep? Is that correct?
No, but there's several reasons why there may or may not be. A lot of times we do have software and hardware issues with our LPR cameras, so they will be down at times. Depending on speed, how old the camera is, sometimes speed and the amount of traffic will also have a bearing on whether or not an image is captured. And then there's ways to defeat LPR cameras as well.
There are ways to defeat them?
I'm sorry?
There are ways to defeat them?
Yes.
Interesting.
And Your Honor, I'm going to object to that and move to strike defendant's comments.
See if they have, if they caught it on the plate or whatever. So on their readers. So, but they did get the one. And out of that, I think the fact that they got the Jeep and there was no tire on that Jeep. You know, a Jeep Wrangler, they all have the tires. They stick out if they don't have the tire. And I think we're back. Everybody refresh. Okay, are we back, everybody? I think you got all that. We're trying a new internet system here. I got a little hotspot because the hotel Wi-Fi was so bad, so I'm using a hotspot in the corner. I'm going to keep going here if you're with me. Peggy's letting me know that we're buffering. So after this witness testified, we heard from Emmy Lynn Sapanoso. And she works in Orange County with the Public Defender's Office. And she worked for the Mesa County or the Mesa Police Department as a forensic scientist before when this trial first started. She obtained a blood blot from Alex Cox from the coroner. She has his blood. She was able to get a DNA sample on there. She used it to create a profile, but nothing more. She herself did not personally test the blood. This was a short witness. Lori did not have any questions for her. I think that Trina K was setting it up because eventually we will hear from another forensic person who likely did test the DNA. Kind of the same story with the next witness, Lisa Perry. She also works for the Mesa Police Department. She processes the evidence on the forensics. She prepared evidence that was taken from the Jeep in Idaho, did not analyze it, but got it ready. So these two women were instrumental in looking at the evidence, preparing it, getting it ready for it to be analyzed. And we did not yet hear from the analyst to say what they found with the DNA, whose DNA was in the Jeep. But they did swab the steering wheel. Well, we'll get into that in a minute with Detective Pillar. The next witness, so we're going to post all these witness testimonies on our East Idaho News YouTube, so you can go check those out, obviously, as we do every night and listen to them in full. But those were probably 10, 15-minute testimonies. But this next testimony was a little bit longer. Her name's Maryanne Robb. She was the officer from Gilbert who responded that night, the morning that Brandon Boudreaux was shot. And we actually played you that body camera footage before. You've heard her voice. Now she took the stand. She has since retired. She said she got to the scene. She met with Brandon. She took photos. She called for backup officers to come and assist. And this is a little bit of what she said during her testimony when Trina K was asking her questions.
When you went up to the Tesla, can you tell us what you saw and where?
The Tesla, the vehicle itself was all closed up. All the doors were shut. And I looked up onto the frame of the actual car. Just above would be where the headrest is. but it's on the outside where the frame is of the car. And I noticed that there was a hole in the top of the car, and it looked to me like it was a bullet hole.
Now, in your 34 years as a police officer, have you seen bullet holes in vehicles before?
Yes, I have.
As a law enforcement officer, we obviously know you carry a weapon. Do you also have your own guns and shoot, I guess, personally?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So when you saw this hole in the Tesla, and I'm going to put up Exhibit 26. I'll pull it out a little. Is this what you saw?
Yes, I did, exactly.
So you told us when you saw this, you recognized it as a bullet hole.
Yes.
Had Mr. Boudreau, when you first contacted him, said anything about a BB gun or something like that?
I made a comment about that. At first he thought maybe it could have been a BB gun because he noticed that his windshield or his driver's side window kind of shattered.
Did he indicate that anything had come in and hit him, like whether there was a hole through the window?
No.
So you go up to this hole, this bullet hole. Did you think that was made by a BB gun?
Definitely not. No.
Did Brandon come up with you to look at his vehicle?
He did after I initially looked at it.
And did he make any statement when he saw you looking at that hole?
He says he definitely wasn't a BB gun or pellet gun or paintball gun. Nothing like that.
Do you recall him saying that he hadn't seen that before you pointing it out?
Oh, that's correct, yes.
So when he first came up and saw you looking at that, did he indicate, oh, wow, I didn't see that?
Yes, he did.
Did you initially utilize your flashlight to try to see if you could find an exit or the projectile in there?
Yes, I did.
And were you able to find an exit at that point?
No.
Did you, in fact, ask him to open up the rear door of the Tesla so you could look and see if there was any exit into the car?
Yes, I did.
Did you find an exit?
I did not.
Okay, so she said that once they realized that he had been shot at, that bullet was in there, he had to sit down. He was shaking. He said, I need a minute. He realized that this was not a paintball gun. This was not a pellet. This was somebody shooting a decent sized bullet at his car, at his head, at his body as he's driving home. The detective, the officer, as I said, called in backup. They arrived. She then basically turned the case over to the detectives. She did speak with Brandon. She said, you have someone you can call. He called his buddies because he didn't have any family that lived in the area and had just, gotten divorced and was in the process of at least getting divorced. And then the officer, wrote her report, turned it over, and that was that. Lori Vallow had a lot of questions for this particular officer, particularly the color of the Jeep, which she has kind of really talked a lot about during the trial. The fact that Brandon apparently may have said it was puke green and then camo green and then gray, dark colors. There's been all sorts of different descriptions of what the Jeep was like, the color of the Jeep. And Lori did cross-examine this witness, and here's some of that testimony.
And you had said before that Brandon had thought it might be a BB gun. He'd indicated that to you?
He did.
And did he indicate to you about seeing a little boy outside?
Nothing like that, no.
Okay. Or that it was possibly a paintball gun?
They made a comment, yes.
And then you had stated that you put a flashlight in there to see if there was an exit. Is that correct?
I'll see if I saw anything inside a projectile or anything in that hole. I did.
And you didn't see any kind of exit hole with the flashlight?
That's correct.
Okay. You had stated that when Brandon's first friend showed up that he was inside the crime scene tape. Is that correct?
Don't believe the crime scene tape was put up quite yet.
Okay. But he was walking right by the vehicle, by the Tesla. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And then are you aware that there was one piece of glass found in the street?
I could not tell you that. I don't know.
So if Brandon and his friends were walking around in that before the crime scene tape was put up, it could possibly have been kicked or moved by a shoe.
A possibility.
Yeah.
So the glass could have been kicked or moved by a shoe. She said it was possible. She asked again if the glass was tested. The glass was not tested. They assumed it was there in the window. And speaking of the tint that we talked about earlier, it's likely when that window fell out, the tint protection material kind of held it together. That's why it fell in one spot on the driveway rather than shattering into a million little pieces. The first juror question. We had a question from the jury for the first time this trial. The other trial, we seem to get more. Maybe we'll get more now. And I have to admit, I was horrible at hearing what they said. I got to tell you, you all watching at home, you get a much better sound than we do in the courtroom in most cases, because it's so hard to hear when they don't talk into their microphones. I thought the jury asked, well, let me play you the question that was asked, and then I'll tell you on the other end what I thought was said, what I actually tweeted and then needed to correct.
Would it be easier or harder to hit a closer target?
Actually, if you have a sight, if you're using a scope, it's harder.
All right. Any follow-up based on that question, first from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
From the state?
And would the movement of the object you're striking also play into the difficulty of hitting it?
It would be the moving of the vehicles. Also, it depends on whoever is doing the shooting with the rifle. Do they have a rest where they can shoot and everything? Meaning a rest, meaning you put your gun on a stable platform and you're able to shoot where there's when the recoil happens, the gun does not jump. If you're doing it freehand, then a lot of times the gun will kind of go up the recoil and your gun would kind of go in an upward direction.
So that was a jury question. I thought they said, would it be easier to shoot a cougar that's moving or something like that? I don't know why I heard that, but I thought, hey, the juror maybe is a cougar hunter, a mountain lion hunter. I don't know. Anyway, fortunately, the reporter with the newspaper here in Arizona Republic, he had a transcription and was able to say, no, it said this. My bad, was not a moving cougar. But that's kind of where you can know where the jury is at least with that one question there. All right, let me move on to the final witness of the day, who actually was the final witness on Friday, who's not done. He'll be the first witness likely tomorrow. Ryan Pillar, the detective who is on the stand and who is the case agent in this case. It began with Lori cross-examining him again. He talked about how he did not begin with that. Trina Kay continued to question him. Lori did question him at the end of the day. He testified about going to Idaho to collect DNA, GSR, which is gunshot residue, and fingerprints from the Jeep. They did not get any fingerprints out of the Jeep. So no fingerprints were obtained, but they did get DNA and they did get gunshot residue. They spent about 3 hours processing the Jeep. He and another lady, Tammy Latschik, who's on the witness list, who we have not heard from, they flew in a state plane because it was an investigation involving a homicide. So they flew them in, they processed the Jeep, and then they flew back with all of the evidence. And he talked about going through the Jeep. Let me play you a little bit of what he said with that.
Was GSR taken from the back of this driver's seat?
Yes.
Was GSR taken from the window over here?
Yes.
Was GSR taken from the roof up here?
Yes.
Putting up 62, is this the passenger side?
Yes.
And again, was GSR taken from the back of this passenger seat?
Yes,
Was GSR taken from this passenger side rear window
yes,
and from this headrest or rooftop there?
correct, yes.
While this was, let me ask you this. Who actually took those little vials with the sticky tabs and pressed it against the rear seat or the window?
Crime scene, Lashik was the one who actually physically collected that GSR.
Were you off sitting in a corner eating a cheeseburger, or were you watching?
I was with her throughout the duration of the evidence collection of the
Were
Jeep.
you not only watching, but helping to ensure that she's collecting from the areas that you want collected?
That's correct, giving some instruction of what I'm wanting to collect. She's the one physically doing it, but I'm helping give instruction and guide for where and why.
So for instance, after Ms. Lashik would collect GSR or potential GSR from the back of, say, the passenger seat, did you observe her as she then closed up the vial and put the tape on that and documented where that came from?
I observed her package the collection.
And then they flew back to Arizona. Now, Detective Pillar also talked about getting the track phone data that Alex went into the Walmart, or Alex and Lori, either both of them or one of them went into the Walmart in Idaho Falls and picked up a track phone. The only person that track phone called was Chad. The only person to call that track phone was Chad. Alex used the track phone. He left his normal phone in Idaho with Lori at her apartment, according to the testimony, during those few days when he came to Arizona. At one point, the morning of the shooting, it's believed that Lori had the phones call each other there in Idaho, and there was a 24-minute call placed. You could say it was an alibi. Like, no, we were talking to each other at that point, but his track phone was with him in Arizona. The track phone was only used from September 26th until October 2nd. That's it. The day of the shooting is the last time that track phone was used. Never picked up again. And it was tracked to Alex because of his Homer J. Maximus email account. Had he set up another email or not associated with it, they may have never tracked it, but he used his own personal information to set up the track phone. That's how they found him. The testimony of Detective Pillar ended with Trina asking her final questions, and then Lori got up to cross-examine her. As we were leaving court today, one of the gentlemen who was in the audience was telling me, like, she got really antagonistic with this witness, like really snippy. And this guy who I was talking with said that Detective Pillar handled her quite well, was respectful. At one point said, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer. I wish I could give you the answer. I don't know. I don't have it. Here's just a little bit of the line of questioning that Lori went down with Detective Pillar.
Did you follow up with any of the neighbors yourself?
I did not follow up with any of the neighbors myself. Those tasks were delegated to fellow detectives in the days and weeks to follow.
But they report to you, right? Is that correct?
If there's something that is helpful, yes. Many times if they go there, they'll simply say, hey, I've knocked on X amount of doors and wasn't able to make contact with residents. Or if they have no findings, they'll simply just let me know I didn't find anything.
So anything helpful to go along with already what you thought had happened, though, is that correct?
Anything to say one way or the other. I mean, as detectives, we have to be neutral fact finders. We're not choosing one way or the other. We are following the evidence. In this case, with the evidence we had at that point, we were following our best leads.
And so did you learn from Officer Robb that the neighbor that she had got contact with said that the Jeep had a tire on the back?
Can object to hearsay.
Sustained.
What I can say is it was within a few feet. And when I say a few feet, I'm going to say 10 to 20, a few feet. And when I say a few feet, I'm going to say 10 to 20 feet of a moving vehicle approaching where the projectile hit the Tesla.
Lori went on to say, why didn't you measure? He said, we couldn't. Why didn't you measure the Jeep? He said, we couldn't measure the Jeep. They didn't have the Jeep. And she asked why they didn't measure the Tesla. And he said they did not measure the Tesla. And then why didn't they measure the other things in the area? And she went on and on about measuring, and he responded. And then she asked about the private investigator, Rich Robertson, if they ever spoke. He said they did speak at the beginning of the case, but Mr. Robertson was hired to look into the civil matters when Brandon was going through the divorce with Melanie, to look at the civil side of things, not criminal. They're different. But he said they spoke in the beginning. She asked if they ever spoke again. And that was kind of where it ended this afternoon. Lori went right up until 4:30 asking her questions, and Detective Pillar will be back on the stand tomorrow to take more questions. And there's about, let's see, we got to, I think, let me look at my official witness count here. We are at, out of the 22 witnesses so far, we have heard from 14 of them. So we have 8 left. However, the prosecutor said that not all of them may testify. Some may just be referred to. So it's possible that testimony tomorrow and maybe the next day, and then the prosecution rests. The judge did say today, before we left the courtroom, that he was going to start preparing jury instructions. And so that is coming toward the end if he's talking about that. I apologize for the glitches. I know I'm getting messages in my computer saying I'm dropping frames. So I'm going to get, luckily, you know who's coming tomorrow, everybody? Jordan. Jordan's coming, my photog and my video editor and the guy that fixes everything. He will hopefully be able to take a look at all this and get it fixed. So tomorrow night we should have a crystal clear broadcast. I hope. It has been one thing after another with this trial. And then it should work. Okay. So there's what we have for tonight. I do want to take a moment and talk about what happened. I did this morning when I was live on my way into the courthouse, but talk about what happened 5 years ago today. I was on a run. It was June 9th. I remember it clearly because my daughter had had her birthday the day before. And I got a text message from a friend saying the police are at Chad Daybell's house. They've surrounded his house and the block's closed. And I'm thinking, what? And I call the sheriff and he says, I can confirm we're there, but this one's going to be different, Nate. This one's going to be, you can't go up there. Like, it's blocked off. We're not letting anybody in. With Rexburg Police to collect some evidence. This is not the first time that police have come to this home to serve a warrant. They were here back in January and they removed dozens of items from the house. No word, we're not sure where Chad Daybell is at this moment. But police are definitely searching the property. We're trying to give you the best angle we can from up here as we continue to bring you some footage. And we'll go back now and show you what's going on. Over the house. And yeah, we know what happened the rest of the day. Within an hour or so, I got a phone call that we landed the helicopter. I got a phone call from someone saying that Chad Daybell had been arrested and they had video of it, which was crazy. And they sent it to us. And then within an hour after that, we learned that there may have been some human remains found. The police announced that human remains had been found. And that night they confirmed that the human remains belonging to 2 different people had been found in the backyard. And it was just awful. And by that, it happened on a Tuesday. By that Saturday, police confirmed it was indeed JJ and Tylee. Here is those 2 wonderful, bright children, JJ and Tylee, who we've gotten to know over the years. There is the last photo of them together, believed to be taken at Yellowstone. I love this photo. One of you actually painted this for me, and it's sitting in my office. And then there we have this photo of JJ and Tylee. And so tonight we think about them, especially as, you know, it's the irony of it all, that their mother's in court today on yet another trial of trying to kill someone, allegedly, in Arizona after she's been found guilty of killing these two children and the wife of her husband and her fourth husband. And yet it was on this day 5 years ago when these kids were found. So pausing a moment to think about them and to think about Charles and to think about Brandon, of course. With that, let's move on to thank our sponsor, newspapers.com. I got another awesome email from Kathy. She says, newspapers.com provided me with documentation of a now 75-year-old legendary family story and proved it was actual rather than mythical. My parents, who met in January 1949, were inseparable until my father caught my mother in a lie. She claimed she was going to confession, but instead went to greet the Yankees at Grand Central Station as they returned from their series with the Boston Red Sox, on Sunday, September 25th, 1949. Well, my mother, long before she was my mother, fainted and was carried away by bystanders, including 2 police officers. A reporter from the Daily News who was standing nearby snapped her picture and wrote down her name. My mother became famous, or actually infamous, overnight once her photo appeared in the Daily News. She was the talk of the closely knit, densely populated Italian neighborhood, as well as my grandparents' places of work. Fortunately, the Daily News misspelled her last name slightly, and somehow my grandmother and aunts managed to convince my grandfather, a very traditional Sicilian immigrant, that the picture was of someone other than his daughter. As for my father, upon seeing my mother's picture in the newspaper, he broke up with her. He actually ghosted her by not showing up to meet her for Monday afternoon mass. Fortunately, they reunited later that year when my father reached out to him about her Aunt Mary's health. Thanks to newspapers.com, I now have a photo of the event, one that almost precluded my existence, displayed prominently in my living room. While my parents have been gone for many decades, I have to believe that they would finally smile about this just for fun. Here's the photo. Kathy sent me the photo. I don't know if you can see it. I'll try to cover there you go. That she got on newspapers.com. They have so many fascinating things on there. Thank you so much, Kathy, for sending that. We did a giveaway last week from newspapers.com. They wanted to give away 5 t-shirts to you all. It was so popular, they said, let's give away 10 more. Here is how you can enter. Go to eastidahonews.com/news t-shirt. We'll announce the winners tomorrow, and 10 of you will win. You can enter from anywhere in the world. Go to the website. If it doesn't work when you enter your info, hit refresh, and it should work. We were bombarded last week with so many of you trying to enter at the same time. I'm going to show you the page. There you go, eastidahonews.com/news t-shirt. We were bombarded last week with so many of you trying to enter that it almost crashed our site, which is, I guess, a good problem to have. So anyway, there's the website. Please go enter if you want a t-shirt from newspapers.com. And I just have to thank them for sponsoring us here on Courtroom Insider. Okay. Peggy says, I have a zillion questions, and I'm going to start with some shout outs. First of all, Penny, she and her husband watch every night. Thank you so much, Penny. Joanna Rose from Franklin Park, New Jersey. Tisha Daniels in East Idaho. Thank you. Brian Green from Prescott, Arizona. Mr. and Mrs. Victor and Tia Deserina. Thank you guys for watching. Johnny Scott, Alberta. Lisa Walker, Stephen Trapato from Fresno. Nana from Ghana. Ghana? Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Brenda Tobin from South Dakota. Selena Jungling from Fruitland, Idaho. We have a lot of people watching in Fruitland. Kristen Butcher from Fremont, Ohio. Lisa and Glenn from Brisbane, Australia. Terry Van Warmer from Salmon, Idaho. Danae Barnard, it's your birthday. Happy birthday. I also want to shout out to Janetta Shire. Last June 6th was their 22nd anniversary on the day they met and fell in love. And here they are watching Courtroom Insider. Amazing. Shout out to Lorraine Smith from England. Found us at the end of Lori's first trial. You've been a regular follower. Thank you, Lorraine. I appreciate that. And shout out to Luana Maxon. She doesn't miss a minute of Courtroom Insider. Well, Luana, I appreciate that. Thank you. We do have a zillion questions. I'm going to answer as many as I can and I apologize. I hope the signal's coming in clear. This issue with the internet has been my top worry this trial. Penny says, I don't know what white noise is when the lawyers and the judge have a sidebar. I'd appreciate if you could explain when white noise is played in the courtroom. I played it earlier, Penny. What happens is Lori will get on a headset, the prosecutor will get on a headset, the judge will get on a headset, the court reporter will get on a headset, and then Lori has another person on her team who can get on a headset. They can then communicate with each other. And we can't hear any of it because that noise I played earlier is played. So it's just shh. You can't hear anything. It blasts it all out. Will Lori Daybell stay out of the courtroom now? Jesse asks. As the judge has ordered her out of the courtroom, will she be allowed back in? Obviously, I think we now know that yes, she was allowed to come back in. She is still continuing to represent herself. Will the judge tell her counsel to take over? If she continues to cause problems, yes. She did not cause any issues today that we saw, major issues that we know of, but just, and we'll see how long that lasts. If she has any more disruptions, the judge warned her, if you talk over me, if you talk over the prosecutor, if you continue to ask questions that have been objected and I've sustained, your advisory council will take over. So she's been warned. Nate, you were going to show us a special picture yesterday. Did you forget? Yes, thank you. This is from Tony. I apologize for my memory. She brought me this. Apparently twice a year, there is a mountain here in Phoenix where you can see a cougar. Oh my gosh, we're coming full circle with the cougar. Maybe that's what I heard in the courtroom. You see that on the side there? Twice a year, 2 months a year, you can see a cougar. The sun causes this shadow in the mountain, and you see a cougar. And there it is. And that is why I thought they said a cougar. That's going to be my excuse tonight. I was thinking about showing you all this photo. She brought this to me. I'm going to put that in a frame in my office. I just have to say, we have the most incredibly kind viewers that I just am amazed and overwhelmed, and I don't really know how to adequately thank you. I don't. I tell my wife all the time, like, how do you say thanks for this? That you give me these pictures and you make stuff for my family and my kids, and it's just Kay has told me before, Kay Woodcock, that there's been such a tragedy, but they've gained a whole new family of support, and not that I'm anywhere near there being a victim or anything, but I just thank you all for being so kind and polite and everything. Thank you for tirelessly making sure the chats are on point. Do we know what the 30-minute sidebar was for today? That's all Peggy making sure the chats are on point. And apparently today the chats were crazy on our website, on our East Idaho News YouTube channel. But I got an email from someone thanking her for her good job. We don't know what the sidebar was about. Hopefully we might know tomorrow, and I'll let you know. Brandon asks, it was revealed that on December 21st, 2019, Lori gave her car to Colby. They had to go pick it up at Ian Pulowski's sister house. How did Ian's sister come into possession of Lori's car? I don't know. Let's see. Ian and Melanie would have been married for about a month at that time. So I'm not sure how that worked out. Who was the woman by the door? She and Lori seemed to have a moment, and the woman looked very sympathetic to Lori. The woman by the door. You mean when she walked out? When she was walked out, it would have likely been her attorney, because there's 2 tables and the defense tables are right by the door. Unless it was someone else. I'm not sure. Lori she might have looked at somebody in the audience and smiled or something. Kaylee says, why is Lori wanting a 404B hearing? Does she think her character would benefit from this hearing? She's only wanting the hearing if the prosecutor is going to bring in 404B evidence, which we talked about last night. If you missed it, go check it out. So if the prosecutor asks to bring in that stuff, Lori has a right to appeal it before the jury's brought in. She has a right to oppose it and say, no, why should it be brought in? What type will be brought in? She has the right to, ask all sorts of questions like that. Nicole asked, why was Lori able to approach the bench at times and not at others? I thought that because she's convicted already, she wasn't able to approach. She's technically not, but I think the judge at some points doesn't want to hassle with getting the headphones on and technical problems and whatnot. And so he just has her come up. I think it also deals with the fact of, is it going to be a 1 or 2 question sidebar, or is it going to be an in-depth legal issue that the reporter needs to be on the headphones with? If it's just a quick, what's the scheduling issue? What are we doing? I think he'd rather just do it and get it out of the way. Eileen, how does Nate stay awake? I was falling asleep in court yesterday. He stayed alert. I said today that when that white noise comes on, it just kind of, my eyes get heavy, and especially in the afternoons. Luckily on Friday, somebody brought some candy and I had some Jolly Ranchers. I actually still have one right here. Do you like Jolly Ranchers? Oh, maybe I don't. It was a green one, an apple one. I do. Here we go. Apples. I like Jolly Ranchers. but I've been having less and less candy lately. But anyway, that's how I do it. And I type the things. But yeah, by 4 o'clock, I'm ready to go. Teresa says, do you think with this being her last and only chance that Lori will put on a defense or take the stand? I don't. Well, she might put on a defense. I don't know with what witnesses, and I don't think she'll take the stand. She could surprise us all. Maybe she will. I hope she does. I'd love for her to take the stand. I'd love to hear her witnesses. I just don't see it happening. Evelyn says, on Let's Make a Deal, you called yourself Nathaniel. When did you switch to Nate? They ask you for your legal name. My legal name is Nathaniel Frank Eaton, Grandpa Frank, my mom's dad. And so they asked for my legal name. So I've gone by Nate since the time I was 2 or 3, and always been Nate unless I'm in trouble or I am on Let's Make a Deal. Julia says, can the defendant who represents herself be found in contempt of court? Yes, she can. Now, what does that mean? She goes to jail. She's already in jail. She can't pay a fine. She doesn't have any money. But she can be found in contempt. The judge can say you're in contempt. He could say, we're going to put you in a room and have the live stream streamed into you, and you can have a camera in there. And there's a bunch of different things they can do if someone is misbehaving. But yeah, you can be found in contempt. Melissa asks, how are the jurors acting in court? Are they interested? Are they taking notes? I think they're very interested. I have seen some taking notes. They're very tuned into it. I believe they're following the stories so far. I mean, we're only on day 3 that they've been in there. But yeah, I think that they're interested. Haven't caught any falling asleep. The days get long. You're sitting a long time. But we'll see with that. What if a juror knew what 404B meant? Would they know by context that Lori was convicted of other crimes? I don't believe 404B has been discussed in the presence of the jury. If it has been and they knew, that they might be able to put it together. But all of this discussion about opening the door, 404B, things like that has been outside the presence of the jury. Now, in Idaho, Jim Archibald would oppose and object when Arizona stuff was brought up. He'd say, objection, rule 404B. If the jury knew, they could be like, oh, she's got other crimes in Arizona. If you know that. Be honest, I don't know how many know. Some might, but I didn't. A lot of people don't know that. Vicky says, I'm watching from the UK. Can the jury ask the judge what the incident was? Also, does Lori have any supporters in the room? She does not have any supporters that have made themselves seen. She does have a row of seats behind the defense benches. If one of her family or friends wanted to come and support her, they could have a seat. None of her family has come, other than Rex Connor, her uncle, but he has sat on the other side. He's not there to support her, and in this trial at least. And then the jury can ask what the incident is, but the judge is not going to tell them. They have to, work that out separately. Well, they're not going to work it out because he's not going to let them know. And that's why they keep referring to it as the incident. Joanna asks, can Chad watch Lori from death row? I'm trying to figure out the motive of defending yourself unless she's giving him a show. I don't think I think that she thinks she knows best. That's the motive. And she didn't want to waive her right to a speedy trial. That's honestly motive number 1. If she had other attorneys, they said they were not ready to go to trial. There's so much evidence in this. They were not ready to do it. And because of that, she said, no, I want a trial now, and therefore I will represent myself because no attorneys would be willing to do it. Now, as far as Chad watching, I've heard conflicting stories from people that say, yes, he can watch. No, he cannot. I cannot give you a 100% firm answer. I know that Court TV is not on the channel offerings in there. I'm sure he's getting updates. He doesn't have internet. He can't have unlimited internet to watch East Idaho News. But if he can and he's watching, Chad, call me. Let's talk. Julie says, since today marks the 5-year anniversary of the recovery of Tylee and JJ, I was wondering if you could give us an update on the park that was going to be built on Chad's old property. Good question. For those of you that are new to this case, last September, Chad Daybell's home was torn down along with the outbuildings that were on the property. A few days before, the new owner who bought the property, who's asked to be anonymous, gave me permission to walk through the house and do a kind of a tour of the property. You can go watch that on our YouTube channel if you have not seen it. Then the home was torn down, and in a matter of hours, it was flattened. The property owners have not yet publicly announced what they plan to do with the property. They have said they want it to be Did Lori really flip off the judge on her way out? No, she did not. Did Lori really flip off the judge on her way out? No, she did not. She pointed at him. If you go watch the video, she turned around, and I think it was done more in a pointed at him. If you go watch the video, she turned around, and I think it was done more in a, I don't want to say casual way. It wasn't like a, I think she was probably saying, well, he's the one that was mean at casual way. It wasn't like a, I think she was probably saying, well, he's the one that was mean at me. I don't know. I'm just speculating. That's the way I read it. Why do advertisements play during some of the programs? It's not as bad now as before, but it makes it more difficult for me to hear. Oh, I think you mean during here on Courtroom Insider and on YouTube. During the trial, we have no control over the ads. It's a YouTube thing. We stream on YouTube because it's the easiest platform to get highlighted. I thought this was not allowed to do in the jail. Is it because getting her hair done, is that to hand? She is her own attorney. The advisory attorneys are there to assist. She is her own attorney. The advisory attorneys are there to assist. And I think that she's kind of told them, you know, that's kind of how it is. Cindy asked, do Lori's advisors tell her what she should and shouldn't do? I think they help her. Yeah, I think for sure they help her with that. I'm going to try to get through all these. I know there's a lot. No one ever says where the children are from Brandon. Does he have full custody of the 4 children, or does Melanie also get them? Carol says. It's split, half and half. What on earth is the pink pony that Lori keeps trying to get Brandon to talk about? Annie B says.